We good, Cliff? All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Chattanooga portion of today's press conferences. We have the student athletes first. I think everybody here knows the rules. Let's make sure that you have your phones off. And we'll go ahead. If you have a question, please raise your hand and wait till you have the microphone. Let's go up front here.
Yes, our girl.
AG, how necessary have these past few weeks been off, after the SoCon tournament, especially for you?
Yeah, I think it's been good for us just to focus on ourselves, get some practice, not going too hard, but still getting enough in to where we're staying in shape. I think it's been a long season, as basketball is. We know this. There for a long time, so just being able to get that rest and recovery that's needed to push us forward onto these next few games.
Let's go to Chris back there.
Hey, Jada. Chris Ragone with Pack Pride 24/7 Sports. I believe you played against Madison Hayes when you were in high school. Obviously, matching up against her again here. How much are you looking forward to that matchup, and what are you going to take away from those earlier years playing against her to play against her this time?
Yeah, I think it is good that I played against her in high school. It kind of gives me a feel of how she's going to play, but I think as a team, we're just ready to play against them. It's nothing like personal against her or anything, but just ready to get out there and play tomorrow.
Let's go to Ethan.
Hey, Ethan McDowell from the Wolfpacker. Jada, you're obviously one of the best scorers in the country. What are you anticipating from NC State on how they're going to try to slow you down tomorrow?
Yeah, we've been watching a lot of film, watching their ball coverages. They like to ice and stuff like that, so they'll probably try to ice. I've seen some hedging and stuff like that, so it's all things that I've seen throughout the year, so we'll just see when we get out there tomorrow.
Okay, let's go Stephanie up front.
Yeah, what is your mindset headed into this game? In the women's tournament, we don't see as many big upsets in the first couple of rounds as we do in the men's, not quite yet, but parity is increasing. So what type of mindset do you have as do you embrace the underdog role?
Addie Grace, could you answer that, please?
I think just as women's basketball is growing, it's become more and more normal that's going to happen. I mean, we were just out there watching the MTSU Louisville game. So it is very possible. I think that us going into it, we have the mindset that we're going to win. So for us, it wouldn't be surprising, but obviously we're looking to shock the world.
Jada, do you have anything to add?
I agree with Addie.
Can we go to Bob?
Bob Sutton with the Associated Press. For both of you, what do you recall as being maybe your most challenging road environment of this season, and how do you think the team handled that?
Jada, you get to go first this time.
I would probably say our games against Richmond and Coastal early on in the season, like right before conference. I think that was really like a turning point for our team, and I think that we handled it well. We kind of hit adversity. We didn't play as best as we wanted to against Coastal, and then we turned around and played a much better game the next game. So I think it just allowed us to figure out how to handle adversity.
Addie Grace, anything to add?
Jada did 2 losses, so I'll do with a game we won on the road, which I guess it's kind of a neutral site because it was the SoCon tournament. So it's not really a road game, but I think just the environment of like the SoCon tournament and being at championship-type games is something that you can lean on, that experience. And obviously we went 3 and won those 3 games, so just leaning on that and the crowd and everything, it gets a little riled up, the nerves get to you a little bit. So just leaning on that and knowing that we won those games so we can carry that over here too.
Okay, go back to Stephanie. Lynn, why did it get I apologize. I'm sorry.
I shouldn't have called you.
I've been getting it right.
Obviously, the state of Tennessee women's basketball is so big there. Do you have any early memories of watching the women's NCAA tournament growing up?
Addie Grace?
Not like a crazy ton, like one that I can remember like this specific moment, but just growing up as a kid watching all the women's basketball games, men's and women's both. I think there's a lot of good memories and something that you always dreamed about being and getting to play in this tournament because it is such a big thing, March Madness, So it is kind of cool, like, getting to be here and getting to play, but nothing really specific, I guess.
Yeah, I would go on and say that, like, there's not a specific game that I remember, but I just always remember watching, like, the March Madness tournament and it just being something, like, I've always wanted to play in that. And just last year, getting to make it to the tournament, it was just like a dream come true.
Let's go back to Lindsay.
What can you take from last year's experience and do differently this time?
Jada, you're first.
Okay. For me, I would say just like how we were talking about the crowd, like how the crowd is, just like the environment. It's different in March Madness. A lot more fans than we're used to. It's a lot louder. And I would say just like staying in the moment at times. It can seem like it's too big, but just like focusing in on the moment.
I would say the same too. Just knowing that it's just another game, kind of, which it is a big one, but trying to keep that same mindset that it's just another game as much as possible. There's going to be a lot of people. It's going to be loud, but just trying to stay in the moment and focus on what we can control.
Ethan.
And y'all picked up the big win over Mississippi State in December. What went right in that game for y'all, and is there anything from that experience you're taking into the tournament?
Eddie Grace.
I think that was like a big confidence boost for us, honestly, at that point in the season. Just knowing that when we play our basketball and we play like we know how, that we can do anything. Doesn't matter if they're bigger, faster, stronger, whatever you can say about all that. If we're disciplined, we're tough, we play together, we do our things, so that we can win a game.
To add to that, I think we also learned that like we don't have to play a perfect game to beat teams like that. We just executed our game plan, and just it wasn't like everybody has to be a hero. Everybody just had to stick together and stay to the game plan.
Let's go back up front.
This is for either of you guys. NC State obviously has more size probably than you've seen all year. How do you prepare to go up against that?
Jada, could you answer that?
Yeah. I would just say like scouting. Our coaches have watched a ton of film. We know that they're bigger than us. We know that what we need to do. We know we need to box them out and just stick to our defensive game plan.
Any other questions? Bob?
You probably knew you were going to be sent on the road for the tournament. Were you interested in coming to Raleigh? Was that one of the places you thought would be cool to come to, or did you have any guesses of where you may be going before the bracket came out?
Addie Grace?
If you keep up with the bracketology thing, there was some that sometimes would say NC State, Indiana. So I guess NC State was one that we thought maybe we could be at, but you never know. I mean, we're just excited to be here and excited to play. Whoever they put us up against, we're going to be ready to play, and we're going to come and do what we do. But I guess it could have been anywhere, really.
Any other questions? Okay, I actually have a question. Has it been talked about, or were either one of you aware that Wes Moore was the coach at Chattanooga for quite some time?
Do you care which one goes first?
You can go first.
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard to not know that, just the success that he had at Chattanooga and the legacy that he left and all the championships that he brought Chattanooga. But I think that now we can just look back and thank him for what he did here, but now see what we can do.
Okay, Jada?
Yeah, it's definitely something that's been talked about. Like Coach Poppy talks about like the legacy of like Chattanooga's women's basketball. So it's definitely been brought up, but it's not something that we've just tried to put like all of our focus into.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much, ladies, and good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will go in search of All right, we're now ready to begin Coach Poppy's session here. Coach, could you start with an opening statement, please?
Yes, thank you guys for all being here today. We're really excited to be here, back in Raleigh. March Madness, who knows what will happen. Exciting time of the year. Very, very proud of the group I have down in our locker room, the ones that have really fought for us in the 2 years that we've been here, and I'm really excited to be in Raleigh and see Wes tomorrow. It's been a while, my little history with him, and obviously Chattanooga. What a storyline for everybody. So excited to be here.
Okay, thank you, Coach. All right, we'll open it up for questions. Are there any questions for Coach Poppy? Bob?
Bob Sutton with the Associated Press. It sounds like from what some of your players said that you talk about Coach Moore quite often. Is that just the last week or so, or is that all the time, or in some of the legacy that he left there?
Yeah, obviously a lot more as of this week probably than anything else. And as I'm sure my kids may have mentioned, in this business you do a lot of stealing of other people's stuff. And he's done such an unbelievable job. We put in a new set a couple weeks ago before the tournament and called it Wolfpack, and then here we are here in Raleigh. I'm not sure we'll run Wolfpack tomorrow, but we have it in. Made the scout a little bit easier, right? Obviously when they called the name, our name on Selection Sunday and matched us here in Raleigh, a lot of our fan base got excited as well. He built our program and others, right? But 13 years, I believe, he was there. A lot of them banners that we get to look at every day, he was a big part of that. But he not only is a good basketball coach, his legacy in the sense of in the community, the amount of support, or our donors that support us that are still very close with him, it just speaks volume, not only him as a basketball coach, but as a person. And so that was a lot of the talks this week, is that we're probably going to hear a lot of storylines behind it, and rightfully so, and then to continue to share his story of why they're hearing that storyline, I think is important for them to know, but also know the reality is it doesn't necessarily matter to them as much, is we're going to come up here and compete with all we have.
Okay, let's go to Ethan.
Hey, Coach. Ethan McDowell from the Wolfpacker. You're obviously familiar with NC State as a program from your time in the ACC. So what do you admire about them? What stands out about NC State?
Yeah, well, they're really talented. You look all up and down the roster, they're very talented. Really, I think what I admire is the sense of Coach Moore. He's been the same Wes Moore for as long as I've ever known him. Even the stuff that they run is not necessarily overly new. It's just they got good players running it, and he knows how to put them in position and call the game. And it is very familiar to me. My 7 years at Virginia Tech, we played them twice a year and sometimes 3 times if you caught them in the ACC tournament. And it was my scout most of the time. And so it was funny when my assistants come in the office and they're showing me some actions, and I'm saying, well, I know the play call if you need it, right? It's still the same stuff. It's just he's got really good players, and again, he puts them in positions and changes the flow of the game, and they're very, very hard to guard with how they spread you out. So for him to do it as long as he's done it, I think I saw while watching one game, he's had over 800 career wins. I mean, that's amazing to not only win that many, but even coach in that many games.
Let's go front to Lindsay.
The NCAA selection committee obviously likes giving you big narratives in the first round after facing Virginia Tech last year. Can you take anything from that experience to kind of help you this year?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of back to what I mentioned of why we talk so much about it this week is that last year the storyline was a little bit more emotional for myself, being that I had been up there. And I think that we did a really good job of trying to keep that out of sight, out of mind a little bit as we prepared. This week, I just wanted to tell them what they're going to hear, because it doesn't necessarily hit home to them as much as last year did. And yes, take the value in it. But the good storyline is that I'm very familiar with not only this arena, but how they've played, and I think we can lean on some of that with knowing last year's opponent and this year's opponent so well, but just from my time. But I think the emotion side's taken out a little bit this year compared to last year.
Back to Ethan.
Coach, I wanted to ask about the arena specifically. Obviously, it's one of the louder venues in the country. You have experience coaching here. Have has that been a point of emphasis with your team, just how to play in this type of environment?
Absolutely. We've played music in our arena very, very loud all week when we could. Some of our later practices, when no one else is in the offices, we didn't want to mess up administration in some of our morning practices. But, you know, I know there's been a narrative of being a small arena from someone in the local area saying that it's not a big environment. But I've been here, and it is unbelievable. And it'll be fun for our kids. It's what they deserve to be a part of. Whatever it holds, I don't know, but you feel it, right? And I know that our kids are excited, but we're going to have to stay poised because when NC State goes on runs in this building, it becomes hard to keep focused. And so it's been a point of emphasis. Obviously, we try to prepare as much as we could with communication while music is very, very loud in our arena. But when you add the adrenaline and the rush and those kind of, and adversity, you know, we definitely have our hands full, but again, I think with the two that we had that you guys had in here, our leadership is in a place that, you know, I think that we'll give it, again, a good run.
Any other questions?
I know we just got in here, but come on now. Throw them at me.
Well, can you wait for the microphone? Hold on one second. Thank you, Chapman.
Obviously, NC State has more size than you guys have probably seen all season. How do you prepare to go up against that? Is there anything different?
Yeah, and they're bigger at every position, I think, on the floor, especially in the starting group. You know, I think that you got to try to take advantage on one end with our ability to space the floor offensively. You know, we led our conference in three-point field goal percentage, and we're going to have to be able to shoot the ball well to really space them out. The more we get them in tighter spaces, their length becomes very, very effective. So that's first and foremost. Now you flip it onto the other side. Again, we've been small in our own league all year, let alone when you come up against somebody like NC State. It's definitely going to be one of those things we have to focus on all the little things to try to minimize their space as much as possible. But they do a good job, again, spacing you out with not only the ability to shoot it, but their movement. And so as much as we possibly can, yes, there's a scouting report to try to get it out of there. If they've dominated the paint points, we're going to be in trouble, and we know that.
Okay, let's go back to Samantha.
Wes mentioned Hannah and her shooting ability. What does that say about her as a freshman to be able to shoot the way that she does, and how important is that for you guys going into tomorrow?
Yeah, well, the good news for her is that it's not a secret. Everyone knows, so it's not going to be a surprise when she sees coverage tomorrow. It's been one of them things as she shot the ball, and it's become a national thing. If I'm not mistaken, she was leading the country at one point in three-point field goal percentage. We also know how much of a spark she adds to us. With the likes of Jada Gwynn and Raven Thompson, they need some people to space the floor, and she's done a really good job of that. I think that for us, we got to find ways to take advantage. If we all watched Oakland versus Kentucky yesterday and kid hit 10 threes, if we took that, we might be all right tomorrow.
All right, let's go to Ethan.
And Coach, I wanted to ask about Jada because she was great for you in the conference tournament, has been great all year. For those not too familiar with her game, what makes her such a special player? Yeah,
well, it starts outside of what no one sees. She's an unbelievable kid and works her tail off. We've been fortunate. If you see her story, she was in the tournament a year ago with Tennessee Tech. And so she has that experience that I think we can rely on along with our returners that are back here. But for us, she just has been consistent. I think she's had one game all year under 10. And so for us, definitely as a head coach, when she walks through and you know you're going to get more than 10 points, that's a good start. We've found ways to get her into a mid-range pull-up or to the rim a lot, and that's going to be very, very key tomorrow because that size inside is going to be a little different than we've seen. So we're going to have to find ways to get her in there. She's been very efficient when she's got in there all year. The good news is, and again, it's not a ton of NC States, but we've had some competition in our non-conference slate. I'm watching the tournament down there, and Richmond, who we gave a heck of a run, was, last I looked, was tied with Duke in the third quarter. A Kent State team we beat down in Thanksgiving. I know it's another mid-major, but they're in the tournament. Marshall's in the tournament. Mississippi State, I think, was one of the first 4 out, and who we beat at home. So we've got some experience in that non-conference slate that we're going to have to rely on some of those experiences as well. But for her is to remember back of what she looked like last year at Indiana. And she had spurts there where she was really good for them. And we got to find a way to do the same thing tomorrow.
Any other questions? All right, Coach, thank you very much, and good luck tomorrow.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.